children, welcome to biology online classes. So we have studied the various parts of the flower and their functions, what they do in the reproduction in the last class. As I told you, the sepals, they help to protect the flowers when they are in the bud stage. The petals, they attract the insects. Stamens consist of filaments and anther. Okay, and inside the anther, what will be produced? The pollen grains will be produced, and this pollen grains are having what? Male gametes in them. And the pollen grains from the anther, when they will get dehisced, when the anther get matured, the anther dehisces and releases the pollen grains. The pollen grains will be deposited on the stigma by a process called pollination. And after pollination, what happens? That we are going to study today. Okay, and the parts of carpels are what? Carpel consists of ovary, style, and stigma. Ovary contains what? Ovules, isn't it? And then I told this ovules are having the female gamete. So this much is clear to everyone. So let's see after pollination. What is pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma of the flower is called what? Pollination. And after this pollination, what happened to the pollen grain? That we are going to study today. So after pollination, the pollen grains will be where? On the stigma, isn't it? On the stigma. So you can see these are the parts of a pistil. Okay, stigma, style, and ovary. Understood? And inside this, what is there? Ovules are there. So after pollination, the pollen grains will be where? On the stigma, like this. Okay, so the fertilization will take place where? Here in the ovule. So pollen grains after pollination, they have to grow down, okay, through the style, and then they have to reach to the ovule, okay, as a pollen tube. So what is pollen tube? When pollen grains reaches to the stigma through pollination, it has to grow through the style in the form of a tube. That is called what? Pollen tube. Understood? And then what happened? They produce the male gametes. Okay, the pollen grain produces the male gametes. And then what happened? The male gamete will fuse with the female gamete in the ovule and form the zygote. And actually there are two male gametes produced. Okay, one will fuse with the other diploid nucleus. So all that you will study in higher classes only. So anyway, one of the male gamete fuses with the egg which is present in the embryo, okay, or sorry, in the ovule, sorry, not in embryo, in the ovule, and form the zygote. Understood? And then after fertilization, so that process is called what? Fertilization. So what is fertilization? The fusion of male and female gamete is called what? Fertilization. Understood? So after fertilization, what happened to this? You can see that the zygote develops, okay, into the embryo. Understood? Zygote develops into, zygote is what? It is formed by the fusion of male and female gamete. Okay, female gamete is present inside the ovule. Male gamete comes through the pollen tube and reaches here, and likewise it will fuse. Now after fertilization, the zygote will give rise to what? The embryo. Okay, ovule, they form a very tough coat and will be converted into seed. So after maturation, what happens to the ovule? They'll become the seeds. The ovary ripens to form the fruit. So the fruit is what? Actually the matured ovary, and the seed is actually the matured ovule. Okay, and zygote will form what? The embryo. Understood? So usually other parts like petals, sepals, stamen, style, stigma, etc., they fall off. Okay, so there are some flowers where they persist. You would have seen the brinjal. In that the sepal is, isn't it, in the fruit of the brinjal, you can see the sepals are still there after the formation of the what fruit also, right? So the seed contains what? The seed is actually, it's a matured ovule and it contains a seed coat and it contains a future plant or the embryo, isn't it? And embryo, when you take a dicotyledonous seed, you can see that it will have two cotyledons. Okay, two cotyledons will be there, and then you can see an embryo. Okay, an embryo, and the parts of embryo, if you see, it will have a plumule, okay, and a radicle. Plumule will give rise to the shoot system, understood, and radicle will give rise to the root. And cotyledons function is what? They store the food for this developing embryo, understood. So these are the parts of a seed. So seed consists of what? Seed coat, then what? The cotyledons. What is the function of cotyledon? It helps to give what? The nourishment, right? And also you can see as embryo, and that contains a future shoot, okay, or the plumule, and a future root called the radicle. So these are what the structure of a seed. So I hope what we have studied is very clear to you. That is sexual reproduction in plants. Okay, we have studied that the sex organs are actually what? The flowers. Inside that only all the what the sex cells are formed, isn't it, in the stamens and in the carpel, understood. And the stamens parts we learned. Then we learned about the parts of the parts of the pistil, okay, and how the pollen grains are formed, or where it is formed, and how it is transferred, how it leads to the fertilization and the formation of fruits and seeds. Actually seed contains what? The future plant that will germinate to give the future plant. Clear? So in this way only plants reproduce. So now we have to study a new topic, that is reproduction in human beings. So till now what we have studied is about the plants, isn't it? So in humans also, what they are having a sexual mode of reproduction. Okay, so let's see what are the changes, or how the nature makes a person to what prepare, or how he the nature prepare a person for the sexual reproduction. Okay, so you have learned that in 8th class also, there are certain changes, isn't it, that happens in the early teenagers, isn't it? So like what we lose the milk teeth, we get the a new set of teeth, permanent teeth, isn't it? Then other characters also, isn't it, that is allowing the person to develop the sex cells, isn't it? So some body changes happens, proportions changes, new features appears, okay, and also new sensations, isn't it, in adolescent spirit. What different kinds of attractions or new sensations, all this comes, just nature is preparing a person for developing the sex cells. Okay, so this may not be, some changes may be common to boys and girls, isn't it, and some will be different. So this is the what natural phenomenon that makes a person male or female, right, with the capability of producing sperms or eggs. Okay, so you can notice hair growth, okay, then what then you can also see the skin becomes oily, isn't it, and pimples comes, okay, and the persons will become conscious and aware of our own bodies, okay, their own bodies and of the others bodies. And there are some, so these changes are almost same in boys and girls, like what? Appearance of hair, then what? Oily skin become more oily and glowing. Okay, then what? Pimples. All these are what the changes that appears in boys and girls together. Okay, means common, in common. And there are some changes that takes place in boys and girls differently. In girls, breast size increases. Okay, then what? Menstruation starts. And in boys, you can see what new hair growth will be on the face, and their voices changes. Okay, so all these changes are happening in the males. Understood? So these changes also may not be taking very fastly. Okay, it may take years to complete. Okay, and in some people they happens very early and quickly, and some in others it will be taking very slowly. Okay, and for example, thick hair on the face of boys may appear as very small patches first, and they become what they grow and become uniform very slowly only, isn't it? So like this, the changes that occurs in the persons may differ. Why this what body changes are required? Because we have already studied that there is need of what specialized type of cells, okay, for doing sexual reproduction, isn't it? What are they known as? They are known as the germ cells, isn't it? So the creation of germ cells to participate in sexual reproduction is one of the specialized function. Okay, and in plants we have seen, isn't it, when the plants complete their vegetative phase they produce the flowers, isn't it? So like this, human being also develops special tissues for the purpose of developing germ cells, okay, or what, gametic cells. Okay, then the body of the individual organism is growing to its adult size. The resources of the body are used for achieving this growth, means whatever nutrients the person takes, it is used for achieving the growth. So when the body grows, okay, when the body's main aim is to grow to the full size, okay, I told the resources will be used for the growth. At that time, the maturation of the reproductive tissue is not the priority. Means that time means when before the child attains puberty or before the adolescence starts, what is the major aim of the body? To grow the size. That's what children, they are growing very fastly, isn't it? Their size increases very fastly. So the full concentration of the body is to make the body in full size. After that, what happened? Maturation, isn't it? So at that time, the resources or the aim will change, and the rate of general body growth begins to slow down, and reproductive tissues begin to mature. Okay, so this period during the adolescence is called the puberty. Okay, so puberty means during that period, what is happening? The maturation of the reproductive tissues. Okay, so like this is the reason why all this changes happens. Okay, during the adolescence or during the teenage period. How these factors are related to the sexual maturity? Actually, there should be organs that are able to transfer the sperms, send it to the body of the females. So this happens, okay, if the sex organs are well developed, isn't it? So like pollination we have studied in plants, in that gametes or pollen grains are brought to the stigma by different agencies. So in sexually reproducing organisms, okay, there should be some mode to transfer the sperms into the female's body. Understood? So for this, the organs or the body should be able to transfer this. So for this, and at the same time, this should be identifiable also, isn't it? The changes that happen in the body should be identifiable also. So actually the nature is preparing, okay, the body for the sexual reproduction. Understood? So this is the reason why different changes happens during the adolescence, or the during the adolescence period, or during the teenage period. Okay, so this is a natural phenomenon, isn't it? Just like a plant grows and develops flowers. Okay, so in the same way, the natural changes they are, isn't it? So no, nothing to what wonder or nothing to worry about that. It's a natural phenomenon. Understood? So this help the organisms to get matured for the sexual reproduction. Okay, so we will continue this chapter and I'll explain you the parts of the reproductive system in the next class. Okay, till that we can stop here. Thank you.